Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin on Thursday, June 13th, 2019, and I just got done installing the new Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL2 I. Here's a nice little page. It shows a little bit of its architecture. It's better than the last version because it's running like a more native Linux kernel with less compromise over integration with the Windows, which gets you certain speed advantages. The main thing I'm really waiting for, though, is the Windows terminal. But that isn't going to be available until mid-June, so there's really no jumping the gun. You can compile it from source off of the Microsoft GitHub site, but with it so close, I'm just going to get all the other stuff done in preparation. And as I was following the install procedure, I got up to a point where I could do something I couldn't before, which was to list all the versions of Linux that I had installed on my Windows system as a subsystem, which was really just one Ubuntu. And then I started looking at the other things you could do, and these commands were failing, so already the parameter documentation is out of date. So I did WSL-help to see what commands really were in there. And as you can see, export, import, list, set default, but with just one, it's going to use it, terminate, unregister. And so about the only one that was really useful was upgrade. So as you can see here, I did a WSL upgrade my Ubuntu. So that's going on, and that's taking quite some time. And then over here where I normally keep my journal that you guys see here sometimes, if I were to try and go into it, you will see we get the message that an install is actually taking place, and I can't use the bash.exe until that's done, which only makes sense because it's like some sort of, upgrade to the file on the hard drive that's taking place. So I close out of that. What to do in the meantime? Well, some of you out there might know me as Mike Levin of these two free and open source apps, Pipulate and Levinux. I talk a lot about Pipulate because it's tied to my career so much. Free and open source SEO software. It's how I create dashboards, marketing dashboards in Google Sheets so that stakeholders can monitor various bits of data on a day-to-day basis, make decisions, and make more money as a result of it. So the other one is Levinux, which is kind of interesting. I market it as having a way to just eliminate your fear of headless servers, headless Linux servers. And instead of describing it, I'll just jump into it. It's pretty easy to find, by the way. If you're ever looking for it, just Google on Levinux, and I'm pretty much every result that comes up. Because I own one of the sites, you can see my statistics on it. It's showing my current login to my Google Search Console statistics. It's sort of going down a lot, but that's not a big deal because all these other sites are mine as well. Levinux.com is mine. This GitHub site is mine. All these YouTube videos. So, and all paths lead back to it. It's talked about quite a bit on the internet. And if you've ever been meaning to try and take the plunge into, that type-in interface that I'm always using for Linux, and you just want to get over your fear and you don't want to really install anything, just come on over to the Levinux site on GitHub, click here, download the zip, and it's just like a 20 megabyte download. There it is. It's already loaded. I can show in folder. I guess when it's done doing its little whatever, when the blue circle disappears, I can show in folder. As slick as Windows 10 is and has become, well, I guess this is also a Chrome thing. There are always rough edges in tech. So now we do show in folder. There it is, along with that Windows 10 upgrade helper that I talked about in my last video. I'll do Windows tab so that I can just drop that onto a separate thing here and move it over here, and then I'll just I guess right click on that zip, extract all, extract. So it does download as a zip. You do have to do this step, but I guess almost anything you download these days, you have to do something to get it working, unless it's a .exe directly, in which case it's probably a bad idea to download and run. There's the folder. I'll drag it out to my desktop. Okay, cancel. That is either the archive. Oh yeah, I'm trying to drag it out of the archive. Silly me. Now that it is unarchived into my downloads folder, I can drag it out to my desktop. Or can I? Making a fool of me. Okay, so why not? For some reason I can't, but I can run it out of there. Oh, there we go. I was still trying to drag the archive. There is the unarchived version, and when you open it, this works the same way basically on the desktop of a Mac or Windows or even another Linux system, any of your GNOME or KDE installations. You click the icon that's appropriate to your operating system. Standard security stuff is going to say, are you sure? You okay it, and up pops Levinux, which is basically really a bunch of QEMU files that have been out there forever that have proven to be highly compatible, run across all platforms, stable versions of QEMU on Windows and Mac and Linux desktops. I think I still install Linux in there, do I? Yeah, Linux. There's a Linux. And then the one for the Mac, yeah, I don't need to list because that icon there for the folder, thanks to a neat little packaging trick on the Mac, becomes the Levinux icon on a Mac. In some ways, it's actually best on the Mac because they use a very innovative packing technique that uses genuine operating system folders and makes it look like a program. So anyway, this is running now, and it's the first time it's running, so it's going to sort of do a little build. This is that 20 megabyte file that is now inflating to something probably a little bit bigger. It's reaching out to, it does crap out on occasion. That's a QEMU thing. If that happens, just open it again. This will be in the spirit of full disclosure. Levinux is not a highly polished project. It's one that gives you a nice, easy way to play around with text-only Linux with a very small download. A little process here that builds it out into a server. Here we are back at loading extensions, setting up key map, setting up host name. Now it's copying a bunch of stuff over from the host environment to the virtual computer environment now. And there's your menu for Levinux. Now, some interesting things here. You can sort of read and decipher it. I kind of set it up as a little video game. I'll keep this open, but over here for potentially rerunning it or resetting it. The next thing you can do is install Python, exit to the console, learn more, shut down, and I'll show you. You can go to localhost and read more about this, learn more at localhost 8080, or you could choose option 3. So you can just read about it here, click enter to proceed, and I tell you a lot of blah, 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 blah things about the wonderful environment. It does capture your pointer, so you have to press Control-Alt to escape, but when that happens, it shows you there up at the top here. Okay, so if we go to localhost 8080 over here, web page comes up and tells you a little bit more. And that is actually being hosted off of that little box. In fact, let me switch things around so that I can switch screens back and forth. I'll move that over there that I'm waiting for, and I'll move Levinux over here. And so now, if I were to do a refresh on this page, you'll see that refresh is just fine. But if I were to click out of this and do a refresh, wait, time out, it's gone. So you can see that little box there, and I guess I'll copy this over to the same window that Levinux is running on. I think that was right here. Did I minimize it? Oh yeah, I clicked out of it. Silly me. So I will rerun it, and as you know, you might deduce, it's kind of bad practice to just X out of a system and rerun it, but Levinux is this versatile little thing. If anything ever messes up, you can go into the reset, and you can reset it for your operating system, and it puts it back to its initial default. But you'll see it starts up a lot faster here because that server build has already been done. It doesn't have to copy down all that stuff from the host side. And when I say the host side, over here under server, there's ingredients. Here's all the various things that are used in the course of building the server that really aren't used again because they've been copied down and into the virtual machine, into a single file that's sitting on your system now. Forget where I keep those files, but surfing around here, you'll find some QCal files somewhere. I'm not going to bother with that right now. We'll just let this start again, and you'll see the web page comes back up. It's the web server that's doing this is an extremely minimal web server called BusyBox web server, BusyBox HTTPD. This is, you can see this tiny little file here. I should show file sizes. That file is 20K, and it's a full-fledged web server. And this page comes back. It's being hosted there. You can actually edit this page. That is kind of the goal that I bring people through. Some of the things you can do here is, let's see, what'll be interesting. Building Python takes a while, but I will exit to console by hitting the 2, and it tells you, you have to type in, hit enter to proceed to make sure you read it, because so many people don't read. You have to hit in TC as your username, foo is the password, and now here you are logged in, and I give you a little bit more like Alice in Wonderland nonsense to sort of get you psyched up about the text-based interface. And we can build Vim now by typing drinkme.sh. And I tell you a lot of stuff because embarking on the Vim education is probably one of the biggest things you can do in your tech career. I hit 2 to approve it, and now it's fetching Vim. And now we'll actually be able to go and edit some of those files that were copied from the host, in this case the Windows host, over internally here in this QCal file. I say QCal, QEMU, the emulator. Okay, Vim installed. Okay, now we can ls, see what's there. I can Vim drinkme itself. And here is the drinkme file that downloads and installs Vim. And I could do some editing there. I could highlight text. I could delete it, go somewhere else, paste it. And, it's basic Vim editor. Now I'm going to quit out without recording my, my keystrokes, clear it, and let's see, exit. That would log you back out. You can log back in. You get the text that tells you how you can get the that menu back if you really want it. You can sh etc rc.local, and here's your options again for Levinux to do this other stuff. And I really am waiting now for this to finish, my Ubuntu Windows, my Windows Ubuntu kernel hard drive instance to upgrade, which gives it more speed advantages, more native Linux type behavior. But anyway, while that's going on, I'll show you how you can, cut your teeth on this text-based interface. I told you that this is being served off of here, but another thing you could do is you could use a terminal program like the Windows terminal that I'm waiting for to make the new Windows subsystem really worth it. But you can use Putty or whatever to SSH into TC localhost -p2222. Now there is a little gotcha, but I consider it as part of the whole Alice in Wonderland adventure. There's very little room to put a lot of text here. So if people actually try and do that, in my case, I'll use, I cannot use my terminal, my hyper.is, because it is undergoing the upgrade. So I'll close out of that, and I'll do what most people in the planet have to do at this point, which is just Google Putty. Putty is kind of awful, but it's always there. It goes back a million years, and it is a terminal program for sort of bare minimal getting by. You can do the installer, or you can do the standalone 64-bit. That tends to be the one I use. I'll pull it up in the Windows, my download directory, and I'm just going to go ahead and run it. You'll probably get the same warning as anything else you do, but you don't. That's really interesting. I must have used Putty so much that I've approved it or whatever. It's on an approved list that's been around forever. But on Levinux, your instructions are SSH to TC at localhost port 2222. So, host name. I'll put the username in there, TC at localhost port 2222. Open. Okay, this is the problem that sometimes occurs. Do you want to continue? Oh, well, Putty handles that. Server's host key is not cached. Okay, approve it. And same username and password. Username TC. Oh, it's just asking for the password, foo. And here we are in Putty, logged into this. So I'll put it side by side with it. Windows tab, and I'll drop this onto this screen so you can see with this I am logged into this. And let's see what some of our instructions here are on Levinux. Edit with VI, an introduction. So cd into htdocs. I pasted something, cd htdocs. Okay, I'm in that directory. Type ls. You can see what's in that directory. I know these instructions. I don't have to go back and forth. I can vim index.html. Here's vim of the web page that I'm showing. Levinux beta version 3.0 documentation. Hello world. Save. I talk about how to do that kind of save in Linux beta version 3.0 documentation. Refresh. Hello world. I just edited a file that's being hosted on this tiny little text-only Linux server virtual machine that runs with a double click from the desktop of your Mac or Windows or other Linux machine. I opened a terminal to it using Putty. On the Mac, you just use the built-in terminal. In the very near future, you will be using the Microsoft Windows terminal, which at long last and after many years of frustration, Microsoft is going to provide a standard tool for interacting with Unix/Linux commands. Remote servers, your local server, whatever. It's the other way to interact with a computer other than that point and click environment. Point and click that includes web browsers, all that is that GUI, graphical user interface stuff. This is stuff that dates back to the 1960s and older. That's really at the heart of, pretty much every kind of technology out there. Unix/Linux has won. The writing is on the wall. Microsoft is getting ready to ship Linux with Windows. This is huge. This is how you do text-only stuff. This is what I'm talking about. The gum Jabbar. It's a Dune reference. Stick your hand into the fire of Linux and learn it real quick. Very little investment, very little risk. If you do a bunch of stuff and you mess it up, you can simply Well, first of all, nothing's really that dangerous. You can just close out of stuff. You can even just close out of this. And if you ever mess anything up, you just go into the reset folder. Oops, that was the reset from Mac. Same trick being used there, but you can reset from Windows. It's going to make sure you want to do this. So you hit more info, you hit run anyway. And now this is just going to basically, you can see that's a backup of the QCal file. It basically just sets it back to default. So if you were to run this again, it would have to go through the server building procedure again. You'll see the word Levinux is going to come up again. It's going to copy a whole bunch of stuff from the host environment that's located in here, ingredients. So what you're about to see in a moment is a bunch of this stuff just being copied down into, like, that's the menu. I can control the menu without even going into the Linux system. I just edit it from a Mac or a Windows system, and the startup menu itself changes. But I'm going to let this process finish because I'm going to do a thing that is taboo, that everyone teaching you Linux or Unix tells you not to do because it will foobar your system. But given the extremely easy to reset nature of Levinux, you might as well have the experience. So first we allow it to, oh, there's that. Sometimes it quits out there. I am not 100% happy with the QEMU binaries that are available to use for this project. I've been looking for alternatives like compiling QEMU from source, a very bare bone basics. But the problem is, because QEMU has become part of the Android development platform and many other things development platforms, it has become so overweight and burdensome that to strip it down to a bare minimal tiny VM is so much work. And I'm looking at other projects like TinyVM and GitHub to replace QEMU with, but I have had very little success so far to have something that carries around its own dependencies and works on Macs, Windows, and other Linux systems. Basically a miracle is being pulled off here. And even though during that process of copying the files over from host, it does sometimes crap out, this itself is a miracle. This is using the TFTP command built into QEMU to copy files down from the host system to build this server. Okay, there. So the thing I recommend doing is just go into the console, enter to proceed, log in, tc foo. Now this is Linux, so you could do ls, you could cd around, but one of the things, oh, you can sudo su, become super user. You can tell you're now super user because of the hash mark as your prompt, but if you exit, you're back out to a normal user. I'm going to clear. Now sudo elevates the permissions of the command you're about to type to that of super user. So I am going to sudo rm, which is remove. Rf means recursively enforce everything from root. Now before I do that, I will demonstrate that the ls command is in fact there. So sudo rm rf / I am now removing everything that can be removed with a recursive delete on my system. This is like one of those moments. If you could actually do this on a real production server, you would make a lot of people very angry. It's like that joke that they do on Windows, hit Alt F4 to, you know, send a smiley or something. How did you do that? Just hit Alt F4 and someone hits it and it quits you out of the program, because that was the universal quit program keyword combination on Windows. Well, that command that I just typed is the universal nuke my system. So if I try and clear the screen, oh, you can't even find clear. If I were to try and ls it, Everything is gone. This is a nuked Linux system. Everything that wasn't in memory and undeletable because of how things work is deleted, including all the what you would know as the GNU command set. It's not really GNU here, it's BusyBox, but it's an 80-20 rule. It's the bare minimum possible to get a Linux system. You foobar your system, you get your pointer back, you go into reset. Now you probably will want to X out of this, but now you can reset from Windows. And I already approved it before. It pulls out a new backup of your system. So if you ever really wanted to get back that old system, you could. But now you go back out here, and even though I have extremely nuked this system, I can open that and it would go through the Levinux server rebuild again, and you'd be exactly back where you were. Now, you might ask questions about using this for a development platform, persistence, and all that. Yeah, this is just to cut your teeth on text-only Unix and Linux so that you can move on to other things like the official Windows Linux subsystem, which is what I actually use for my day-to-day work, which is what I'm waiting for to finish here. So I will continue my waiting, but I used a little bit of this time to make that video for you to show you all the wonderfulness of Levinux, which you can get by just going to good old Google, typing in Levinux. Here, let me do it in a anonymous window so you don't see that stuff it's putting in because it knows who I am. And you know, you can download it from GitHub or go to my personal site and read a little bit more about it on the Levinux page. And thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe.